Hello everybody, welcome into my latest live video. It is the 1st of August, 2024. It is Thursday. My name is CareyHolzman. Thank you guys so much for joining. Thank you for all the members joining us in the chat room. If you want to join us in the chat room, just become a member here. Help support us and keep us away from corporate sponsorships so we can continue to bring you a variety of technology, computer repairs, computer upgrades, computer builds, and do it all independently without the controlling hand of a corporation writing a check. And as long as we can remain independent, well, we'll keep making as many videos as we can afford to make, and that's all because of our members. We thank you so much. And of course, our friends at Acronis, who make backup software and imaging software, our friends at RoboForm, the password manager, and our friends at VIP CDK deals. These are not sponsorships. These are discounts for you guys, 30% off. Acronis doesn't control what I say. RoboForm doesn't control what I say. VIP CDK deals does not control what I say. These are real products that I use in my real life tech business. I'm going to use them regardless. I reached out to these companies and asked if they'd offer you a discount, our viewers, and they have agreed. So see the video notes below this video for more details. And if you're interested in any of those products, we have individual videos that we have done interviews with these companies, except VIP CDK deals because of the language barrier. We have full walkthroughs, as well as with VIP CDK deals selling Microsoft Windows license keys. We show you how to get a legal copy of Microsoft Windows from Microsoft, and then how to activate it using the VIP CDK deals key. Same with Office. We explain what a password manager is with Simon from RoboForm. We walk you through everything. And yeah, if you don't have a password manager now, or you're looking for a better one, you need to check out RoboForm. These products all have free trials. Again, I'm not paid to tell you any of this. I'm just putting it out there to try and help you. It's like you throw somebody a life preserver and they're like, hey, this thing's made by Acme Company. They're just paying you to throw me a life preserver. Okay, then drown. You know, I don't know what else to do. The internet is a crazy place. Now, today, I have a review for you. And we've slowed down the number of mini PCs we've reviewed here. They were super exciting as they were new and very inventive. And now a lot of them are just kind of the same thing with better upgraded internals, but otherwise not much new added. But one of the companies that continually comes out with new innovations is our friends over at Minisforum. And Minisforum has a number of brand new machines that they asked if we'd be interested in reviewing. And I took a look at them and I said, yeah, you know what? These are interesting. So over the next, well, throughout August, we'll probably be looking at about one mini PC a week, likely for Minisforum, because they have so many new ones. And we don't want to bring you the information too late, but we also don't want to flood you with just nothing but mini PC reviews. We've got other content from networking, Wi-Fi routers, computer builds, all coming up this month. And as we're moving out of Studio B into Studio A, we're trying to get things cleared out. And there may be a disruption in the broadcast schedule when all the cameras and monitors and backgrounds all have to get moved to the new location. And then all that has to be completely wired up. In fact, I brought over a camera and a tripod and a microphone and battery chargers and an HDMI cable and a power cable for the camera and a tripod head for the camera. And I set all that up and I started thinking, how can I test broadcasts from here? I'm going to need a computer, but I can't use that one. I'm using it. I have the old streamer, but it doesn't have a capture card in it anymore. And if I take the capture card out of that one and put it in the old one, then I can't stream from here anymore. I could use one of the backup streamers, but I put them all at Studio A, which is a long drive to go and get. And then even if I have the computer, I don't have anywhere to put it. So I guess it would sit on the floor. So then I also need a keyboard and a mouse. Where would that go? I also need a monitor so I can see what the heck is going on. All this to just do a test broadcast. So if I move a table into there, I have to clear the table out so I can get this table in. Not quite sure how I'm going to pull this one off. There may be a disruption in the broadcast schedule. On a day I normally broadcast, we may temporarily, and I'll let you know ahead of time. We may temporarily need a few days to get all this set up. And then once it's set up, there's lighting and sound issues that we'll deal with after that. But it is a lot of work and there's a long way to go. So just a heads up on what's going on over there. Of course, I could just pick up my phone and do a live broadcast, hold the phone. I wish I had a selfie stick, because the phone, I can't really hold it far enough away. And I could live stream in the current state of Studio C. However, I really don't want to do that. So again, if I had a selfie stick or a tripod head or something that could hold the camera steady, I could at least talk to you from there and kind of give you an idea of the space. But yeah, a little in over my head on this one. I think generally people don't understand how complex my setup is, because I'm not just a person sitting in a chair. I'm standing up behind a desk. I'm walking all around it. I need full sound and full lighting from every direction. I can't use a boom microphone. I have to use a lapel. It's got to be wireless or I'll be tripping over it. And we've got batteries that have to be charged every single night before broadcast for the cameras and for the microphone pack. We have parts that we have to buy. In this case, Minisforum sent us the unit for free in exchange for a review. We always try and be really transparent and disclose everything so you understand that I'm not biased. I do the reviews I want to do, and I don't do the reviews I don't want to. I'm the boss. That's how it goes. So nobody's paying me to do this review except the viewers. That's it. That's all there is. So, all right, with that, what are we reviewing? It is the Minisforum. It is called the EliteMini UM890 Pro. Not a big fan of all these letters and numbers. I will get it wrong constantly because Minisforum has a series of mini computers with different letters and numbers that don't make a whole lot of sense to me. But maybe UM is Ultra Mini. I don't know. 890, the 8 would suggest it's an 8 series. And Pro would suggest it's got more power and inputs on it than a budget PC. So what is it? Well, let's take a look over at Minisforum's page and see how they describe it so we understand what to expect. First and foremost, I need to get the capture going. Here it is. Okay, so the Minisforum UM890 Pro is an AMD Ryzen 9 8945HS. That's a pretty high-end processor. They offer it in 3 configurations. You can do it with bare bones, meaning you put in your own RAM, your own storage, and your own operating system. And you can pick this bad boy up for $479. That's a really good deal. Or if you want it ready to roll when you get it, 32 gigs with 1 terabyte is its minimum configuration because it's the Pro, not the home version. And you're going to spend $649 for that. So you can do the math to figure out that difference on what it's going to cost you to put in your own RAM, your own storage, and your own operating system. That's why there's a price difference right up here when I flip between these two. You'll probably find this is a cheaper option, and it's plug and play once you receive it. If you want more RAM, they do offer it with twice the amount of RAM and the same SSD. And as you can see, it's $70 more, $729, $649. All right, so what is it? This is a very powerful mini PC. This can be used for production purposes. I could take this mini PC, easily plug a USB capture card into it, and that can solve my PC problem with regards to temporarily setting up broadcasting in Studio C. I wonder if I still have one of my old USB capture cards laying around. This will easily handle that. Now, Minisforum is also selling an eGPU dock, an external graphics card dock that can plug into the back of this for those of you who need an external or want an external graphics card using the Oculink Port. It says it supports quick disassembly. I suppose this is going to be another one of those rubber feet that are stuck on with adhesive that we have to peel off to get to screws. which I despise. But once you do that, it looks like there's super easy access inside to your RAM and to your storage and possibly your wireless card. It says it has 2 DDR5 SODIMM, that's laptop style, 5600 megahertz RAM. It could support up to 96 gigs of RAM. That's two modules that are 48 gigs each. That's the largest size you can buy. It's not a limitation of the machine. It's a limitation of the RAM manufacturers. That's as big as they've been able to get it so far. This number may change in a few years. It can also install 2 M.2 2280s that are Gen 4. And it can do them both at the same time with a maximum capacity support of 8 terabytes. So once again, the reason they say 8 terabytes is about the biggest SSD you're likely going to buy is a 4 terabyte. If you put 2 of those in there, you're going to get 8 terabytes. Unless they meant a maximum of 8 terabytes per slot, in which case, yes, they do make 8 terabyte drives. They cost more than this computer. And if you put 2 in them, you get 16 terabytes. There's no such thing as a size limit for storage on a modern computer that hasn't existed for over 20 years. So even though they make these statements about RAM and storage, it's usually whether or not, well, first of all, when they wrote this and what was the largest available you could buy at the time. Eventually, these will be 16 terabytes each. Give it a couple years, and every time it'll double. Then it'll go to 32 terabytes, and then 64. And the question will be, will the module be too fat to fit into the slot? There's a certain amount of space, and that will be the thing that prevents you from upgrading in the future, is the fitment, but not the technology. All right, let's see what else we've got back here. Talk a little bit about the cooling system. 2.5 gig LAN times 2. Oh, interesting. Okay. And quad screen display support. So you have 2 HDMI ports, 1 display port, and 2 USB4 ports. And you can use the USB4 ports, or one of them, as a display output, a display port. So that would be 2 monitors, 3 monitors, and 4 monitors total, as they've got displayed here on the picture from that little tiny machine. Inside, if you were to break it apart and see the breakdown of it, you've got the shell, you've got the cooler that sits over the RAM and storage, which is very nice. And then on the underside, for some reason, they're not really showing us what's going on over here. You've got your CPU on the other side of this board with its own cooler. A little more on the specifications. It's Wi-Fi 6E and Bluetooth 5.3. Now, I do think Bluetooth is up to 5.4 and, of course, Wi-Fi 7. But most people are barely even going to notice Wi-Fi 6E. It's not going to make your internet any faster. Now, here on the front, they've got a clear CMOS recessed button. Our audio jack, which is for headphones or microphone or speakers. We've got a USB4, it says Alt PD, that means power delivery. That means we could plug like an external monitor into this and power the monitor if the monitor supports it, or is it the other way around? The monitor can power, we'd have to try it and see. I've only demonstrated that once or twice, but it's a pretty cool feature. We've got 2 USB 3.2 Type A ports. We've got our power button. 2 more USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type A ports. There's our display port. There's our other USB 4, our HDMI, our Oculink, that's for the external GPU dock. There's our 2 RJ45s that run at 2.5 gig, and our barrel style 19-volt power connector. A little more information. The processor's 8 cores and 16 threads. And it looks like that might have an NPU. Does it have an NPU? And then it says, let's see, DDR5. We covered that. So the Oculink is, we'll be able to demonstrate that soon. They have their cooling system. A lot of people worry about their heat in their small PCs. They have their technology that they've designed called Cold Wave 2.2. And as we mentioned, it can support 4 screens simultaneously. And it includes a VESA mount for wall mounting or mounting behind your monitor. All right. This is pretty exciting because of just how much power is sitting in here without being gaudy or garish. It just looks like a normal everyday mini PC. In fact, there are some budget mini PCs that look just like this that are pathetically slow. But you might just have a very limited budget and have very limited needs for a computer. In other words, you might just want something for a home theater PC. And the great thing about this is the equivalent of about 4 or 5 of those put together in the same package. I mean, it's incredibly powerful. In the same package the budget PCs can be found in. So there's nothing about it that screams, I'm really expensive and powerful, steal me. And of course, it could be used as a home theater PC, but that would be way overkill. This is probably more powerful than the desktop you are using right now to watch this video. Probably. All right, let's go back over to camera 1. There I am. And let me turn off window capture for a minute. Swing over to the chat room. Let me say hello to everybody, and then we're going to do our live unboxing. Luke Greeny is saying hello. I got to start at the top and as far up as I can go. Brad Revel says hello. Frankie B says hello. Madman Dark Jedi saying hello. There's Scott and Charles Purdy and Goof and Doman 2000, Ray Gallagher, Mark Baggett, Steve Mercur, Jamie McGregor, Squishy, Mark Gaines, Daryl Loftus, Bajan Guy 908, John Paul Bacon, and Dave Batt, Douglas Burchell and 3D Everything, Ron Barnish saying hello. Ron Barnish said he just replaced the cooler on his PC after he saw our Mugen 6 review. And the Max 10 with the Mugen 5 was 90 degrees Celsius. And with the Mugen 6 with the dual fan, his max temps were 76 Celsius on a single multi-core test. And the single core test was 66 degrees Celsius. So again, with the Mugen 5, he reached a max 90 degrees Celsius on the, I'm guessing he's talking about Cinebench R23. So we got max of 90 on multi-core and a max of 90 on single core. Changed out the Mugen 5 and the Mugen 6 with the 2 fans. Now we're seeing 76 degrees Celsius on multi-core, 66 degrees Celsius on single core. That is a massive difference. Massive. For $55, what a deal. Ron, thank you for following up with me and letting me know. That's awesome. And now I guess you got a spare Mugen 5 laying around. Another project. And he says he's running an i7-11700 CPU. Shamim Kajvira says hello. There's Jack Kugelmass, David Graham, Cam Blinsky, James Carter, all popping in saying hello. Welcome in, guys. Essential Working Too Hard joins us and say hello. Luke Greenia, who had his Ace Magician CK10 just suddenly die on him, said he got a new power brick from Amazon, hooked everything up, and unfortunately it did not work. What a shame. We sent Luke Greenia the CK10 for long-term testing so we can see how these mini PCs will perform under everyday use rather than a few minutes in a review. And requested that people report back to us, say everything's running great, here's what I like, here's what I don't like, and we can establish if that's common or if that's unusual. So unfortunately, what do you have that, about a year and a half, something like that? We probably had it 6 months, so he probably 2 years old and it failed. So the reason for the failure could be bad RAM, bad power brick, anything that can be removed from the PC. So if you need, take out all the RAM but leave one stick, take out the solid state drive and replace the power brick and unplug everything but a monitor. And then you plug that in and see if you get a power on self-test. The other thing you can do is if you have a bad battery, that might be giving you grief, but those units might be very difficult to get to the battery. And the long and short of it is, units are so inexpensive today, the cost of, say, Luke mailing that across the United States back to me for me to fix it, if it can be fixed, just to turn around and mail it back, is a good $100 minimum in shipping fees. So I'm sure FedEx would like that. They're going to make money. But I would recommend take that $100 that you would spend on shipping and put that towards a newer, faster mini PC. So, you know, he offered to send it so we can diagnose it live here. However, they're so limited in what they can do to repair. And if there was any kind of a brownout or power spike that occurred while it was on overnight, it may have damaged a component on the board. So it's really hard to say if it's repairable or not. It's probably, when you're buying them this inexpensive, you pretty much, you know, rely on your warranty. Once your warranty's out, unless you spent, you know, $1,000 for it, it's probably not worth spending money and time to fix it. But it's up to each person to make that cost-benefit decision. Not to mention a new one will have a new warranty. But I appreciate the update. I'm sad to hear that the new power supply did not fix the problem. Sometimes it's something that simple, but you have to. The good thing with Amazon is you can always return that one you bought free. So thank you for the update. A shout out to our friend there, Frankie B, Peter Laycock, and of course Oystein. Oystein joins us from Norway. Frankie's in New York. And our friend Buster, Peter Laycock, he's in Scotland. These folks have been absolutely critical in the speed with which we're able to get the other studios set up. And I cannot thank them enough and give them enough credit for their generosity and support and their friendship. So a shout out to these folks for kicking us into turbo. It's basically what they did. Thank goodness. So, all right, getting on with the unboxing. Right here. Here's what the box looks like. What's interesting is if you buy the budget minis from just about anybody, a lot of times they just come in a plain box with no writing, like they're trying to shave every penny off. So you know, well, you can get a good idea that if they spent time designing a really nice box, it's probably something really nice in the box. And if the box is just a plain box with no writing on it, you probably bought a budget or used refurbished machine. Not always, but I'm just saying. So here we go. Black and gold is apparently the color scheme we're going with. This is the EliteMini UM890 Pro. Now, I have already opened this up and done all of the updates, so this has been opened, but I have not run any tests on it. Hey, there's Thomas back in Stoves saying hello. So we've got our standard Minisforum documentation that's pretty much in all the mini PCs, except, of course, the documentation is specific to the unit. We have our very normal, generic-looking a standard Nook, if you will. The Nook is what, 4x4 is the standard. And again, it's nothing gaudy and packed with power. So it's a little bit of a sleeper. If it were a car, we would call that a sleeper. Okay, so underneath we have a laptop style cloverleaf, Mickey Mouse, whatever you want to call it, power cable here, a short HDMI cable. This is our power brick. Oh, the power brick has the company name on it. This is a 120 watt power brick. All right, the more power, we want more performance, the more power, just like a car. More performance, less gas mileage. So that says Minisforum on it. You'll see it's a barrel style plug and it says it's 120 watts. So that's really nice. That's all the information, big and bold. I don't even need my glasses to see it. Well done. Inside we have this little box. What is this? Oh, okay. I understand. Tell you, I think I know what this is. I think this is an Oculink. Before I open this, let me just guess. I think you use the second M.2 slot to install this circuit board, which then gives you the connector for the Oculink, so that if you're going to run an external graphics card, you're only going to use one of your M.2 slots for storage and the other one. Yeah, I bet you that Oculink doesn't have a... Yeah, okay. This is what's going on here. Let me bring this up and show you. If you look on the back of the unit here, which is exactly as we saw in the picture, there is a dust cover plugged into the Oculink. And that's because there's an empty hole back there. This isn't ready to go. This means it's, if you want to use Oculink, meaning if you want to put an external graphics card for, gaming or whatever, then to do so, you have to install this part. So they include it with the computer. They're not nickel and diming you here. This is included. So if you want to use the two M.2 slots for storage, have at it. But if you want to use the Oculink, you have to give up the M.2 slot that aligns with where the hole is in the case. You don't get to pick which M.2 slot. But whatever one's left over, you can make your one and only storage drive. These are mini PCs, and the processors are also limited to how much data they can handle. So, much more than that, you really need a desktop computer to get all of the lanes possible from the GPU and to have multiple M.2s. Obviously, you can't do all that in a package this size. So, well, you can, but you have to give up something to get something else. And I don't know how they wrap this, but it does not want to come out. Oh no. Wow. Maybe I'll try the other way. Wow. It is. They've wrapped it, and then it's got like a sticky adhesive that's really stuck. I mean, it's like an envelope stuck. So I'm tearing this before I can unwrap it. All right, so there's not a whole lot to this. Let me bring this up to the camera and I will show you. So you would plug this little guy right here into your M.2 slot. That will align with that hole, and then you will secure it in the same way you secure, if this were an SSD. Kind of looks like an NVMe SSD, and it's got that little extension on it that'll reach out through that hole. And now you will be able to hook up an external GPU. So what does that mean, hooking up an external GPU? Well, what we have here, and we'll do a separate video on this because I think it deserves it, is an Oculink graphics card docking station. And so you're going to have to power this because your graphics card needs more power than this can deliver. So you're going to need some external power to power this. You're going to plug whatever graphics card you want into it. Make sure you're providing enough power for it. And then you're going to run a cable called an Oculink cable from the dock to the Oculink port, and you are going to get what is probably the best external graphics performance you can. The problem is, if you put a really high-end graphics card in there, the Oculink is going to bottleneck it. Oculink is as good as we got right now. It's not going to give you all the lanes of the PCI Express bus the way an internal graphics card would. So set your expectations accordingly. And that's true of all external graphics card docks. The data transfer rate going through USB or going through Thunderbolt, it's okay. You go to Oculink, it's about as good as you can get today, and then there's probably going to be some new connector. Eventually, in time, you'll be able to get the full bandwidth of the graphics card. Right now, that's not possible to do unless you actually had a PCI Express slot that you could use. So this emulates that and then runs it through the Oculink port. And so you're limited by the bandwidth of the SSD, right? So anyway, that's what that is. I think, what is this, a DEG1? Maybe I can pull up the Minisforum page about the DEG1 and give you some product shots. Okay, so here's Minisforum's page. And let me see if I can share this with you. Capture. Okay, so this is what the dock looks like. It's actually an attractive looking dock. You see it's got a power cable, like a big motherboard power cable from a CPU that you have to provide that. There no other pictures? It kind of looks like that as an example. It's going to be exposed. Your graphics card will be exposed. There's no housing for it so that the graphics card can breathe and not have overheating issues, and that the dock can be made smaller, cheaper, much more affordable. It is PCIe 4x4. That's the slot. So you're looking at up to 64 gigatransfers per second. And it says it's a lower performance loss, but there is a performance loss no matter what when you put the graphics card external. There's a built-in signal amplifier chip for more stable high speed, minimalist design, widely compatible with unlimited length of video cards, supports the RTX 4090 and AMD RX 7900 XTX. Follow the main power switch of the host computer to start, saving electricity and worry. And yeah, that's what it looks like. And as you can see, $100. So when we talk about gaming, I always say it's an expensive luxury. So then you got the price of the graphics card on top of the price of the dock, on top of the price of the computer. But you know what? Still cheaper than doing it in a traditional tower. Anyway, let me go back to the chat room. Camera one. Yeah. Here. All this over here. Let's put it in there. Now, oh, you know what? I did mention the VESA mount and screws are also, I don't think I did that, did I? And that's it. That's everything in the box. Pretty simple. Really nothing to assemble unless you want to add in the Oculink connector or add another SSD or change your RAM. We'll get to how you get to that here in just a moment. Let's put that back. I don't think it needs that little plastic bag it was in. This box is just barely big enough to fit it. I mean, they're like literally to the millimeter the same size. Okay, so we'll throw that back in there. All right, get this out of my way. Let's plug this bad boy in and see how it performs. Now, as I mentioned, I went ahead and Went through the out-of-box experience, the initial setup, went through Windows Update, made sure we were all current. And I think that's all I've done to it. So we still have to run all of our tests. So let me grab my lower-leaf Mickey Mouse style laptop power connector right there. Plug that in here. And I need, let's see, internet. HDMI, which is right here. HDMI port is right below where the Oculink port is, currently not occupied inside of here, just underneath the dust cover. I need a keyboard and a mouse. Icarana said, if anything, they should tell you which GPU is best before experiencing major battling. So you should be able to do the math. You know what I mean? Like, they can't tell you which graphics card is best because we don't know what games you're playing at what resolutions and what frames per second. It's like they should tell you what you should have for dinner. Like, how do they know what you even like to eat, how hungry you are, and what you can afford? So when it comes to stuff like that, it's a simple question of math. If you're buying a video card that does so many gigatransfers per second, and you know the dock is limited to 64, you just check what your video card's capable of. If the video card is more than 64, you can figure out you're going to have potentially a bottleneck if you're even transferring 64. You may not be. You might be, one of the most popular games is Sims 4. I think if you look at what's trending right now, I think Sims 4, is it? Sims 6? Anyway, it's like one of the most played games right now. And no reviewer is testing any video card performance with that game that's really, really popular right now. They're testing games that other people just aren't playing, right? They don't have the popularity. So why do they do that? I don't know, but that's why I don't test games. There's too many out there. And some require different benefits of different graphics cards to perform better. And since they don't know what you're playing and how you're setting it, they can't tell you if you're even going to have a bottleneck to begin with. But with regards to the possibility of having one, you can do the math. So what you're asking for is an extraordinarily impossible question to answer. Which graphics card is going to bottleneck on me depends on how you use it. It may not bottleneck at all. So just because it can, let's say, for example, you get a high-end GPU, it's super fast gigatransfers, and now it's limited to 64. Why are you assuming that you're going to bottleneck it? What makes you think 64 is not enough? That's where I'm concerned. Like, why did your anxiety jump right to the bottleneck without any example? So it's going to be different for everybody. All right, let me plug my keyboard in and we'll turn this thing on. I appreciate the question, but it's a little oversimplified. It's a way more complex solution that's not going to be the same for two people, likely. So, all right. Get this turned around so you can see it. And then let's go over to our HDMI port. Here we go. And I'll put myself in the corner. Let's go ahead and turn it on right now. We can see what the boot time is. So right over here, like that. All right. All right, now, there is your actual cold start boot time, live and unscripted as always. This is an unmodified from the factory Windows OS installation. I did not run Malwarebytes on this because it's a completely pointless thing to do. Minisforum has never been found to have anything other than factory installs without any other third-party add-ons for or any excuses thereof. Everything is just right. Now, that might bite me in the butt one day, but I have complete trust in Minisforum, and I keep spending 2 hours scanning the system, and it never finds anything. So after a while, it's like, yeah. Of course, if you're nervous about it, you can download a free trial of Malwarebytes and just do the custom scan to scan the entire drive. You'll know if it's a custom scan because it'll take about 2 hours, hour and a half to 2 hours to run. If it's finishing in like 2 minutes, then you did a quick scan. It's definitely not as thorough. But either way, if it makes you feel better, let me go full screen over here so I can see this the way you do. All right, let me grab my flash drive and we'll copy the utilities over. Oh, I gotta grab the right mouse. That would help me. I use the proper mouse. All right, let's go to our utilities and let's copy over, let's see. You know, I like to install VLC as a replacement for Microsoft's Media Player. I think this is more versatile. I think it's more transparent, more trustworthy, and I think it does a better job actually playing videos and music. And then I also want Uncle Carey's Windows 10 optimizer, even though this is Windows 11. It's fine. And then under, let's see, PC testing software, let's grab Cinebench R3. Also grab CPU Z, and we can grab Crystal Disk Mark Portable and hardware info. Now these are all free downloads. If you just Google them, you can find the portable editions, which is what I use, meaning we don't have to install anything. I am installing VLC, but VLC is not a testing program. The testing programs I don't want to install and leave anything behind with regards to system files or registry entries. And with that, I can simply pull the flash drive. You don't have to eject it. Either way is fine. As long as the flash drive is not reading or writing something when you pull it, fine. So the first thing I want to do, I suppose, is let's take a look at Crystal Disk Mark and see what performance we've got from the factory 1 terabyte SSD. So again, out of the box, no optimizations, just Windows Update. In fact, let's check our Windows version and make sure we're up to date. We have, okay, there's all of our hardware, right? The Ryzen 8945HS with Radeon 780M graphics, 32 gigs of DDR5. That's probably 2 sticks of 16. It's Windows 11 Pro, not Windows 11 Home. So Minisforum is back to installing Windows 11 Home or Pro, depending on the level of machine that you're buying. This has Pro written right on the box, so it's intended for professionals or people that have more extreme demands or demands that are likely in line with working, you know, as an employee. So we need to start watching that on these Minisforum computers because some will have Home and some will have Pro. And it's likely going to be obvious when you see the prices and how they're designed, which ones are designed for home use and which ones are designed for pro use, and likely will have the equivalent to Windows pre-installed. So we're on 22H2. Oh, sorry, 23H2. Good. Everything, it looks good here. If we go to the device manager real quick before we run the benchmark, click manager. Let's see who makes those network cards. It appears Realtek. It makes these cards. These are the Realtek Gaming 2.5 gig cards. The Wi-Fi is made by who knows? I don't know who that is. But that's interesting. What is that? Oh, it's a MediaTek. Okay, it's MediaTek. Phew, I was getting a little worried. Like, what the heck is this? All right, let's go ahead and run all the tests on the SSD, and we'll see what our read and write speeds are under these scenarios. And while we do that, I'll take some questions and talk to you guys here in the chat while we're waiting for this process to finish. 4808 is Gen 4 speeds, so anything from 3700 to 7400 falls in the range of Gen 4. So it's definitely right down the middle of, well, a little below the middle of the performance possible with the Gen 4 interface. But that means you're going to spend nearly twice as much money on the exact same drive, right, at 1 terabyte, exact same capacity, just to get that speed up more. How much do you want to spend? And that's what it amounts to. And will you even notice it? Most people don't. But 4800 is insane. 7300 is, at some point when something's moving at a certain speed, you can see it, right? If I throw a ball to you, you can see the ball coming and you can catch it. If I shoot an arrow, you probably can see the arrow as it flies. Fire a gun, you probably can't see the bullet, it's too fast. So whatever that speed is, whatever the difference between what you can see and what you can't see in motion, once you reach that speed, if you can't see it, any speed higher than that, you still can't see. Well, it's kind of the same with these storage drives. You can see the numbers and the benchmarks. You can see, you know, if you drop a more expensive NVMe in there, up to 7400 sequential read speeds. But you're likely not going to see it outside of a benchmark. In other words, your computer is still going to effectively boot up in the same time. Your programs are going to load in the same time. And maybe if you're playing some intense game that has long load times, because you've got the external GPU, if you're spending that kind of money for a graphics card dock and a graphics card and your Steam subscription, let's say, and you probably have a nice monitor and a nice keyboard. You probably have a gaming chair and headset, mouse. You probably have a really nice speaker. I mean, you probably got $3,000-$4,000 in your setup. And if you're that person, you know, all the power to you. You're certainly more than welcome to change that out for a faster drive. But for everyone else, you probably won't notice when you're using the computer that it really feels any faster for most people. So that 4800 is nothing to sneer at. It's very, very fast. Well, also keeping the price of the machine down, I should say. John Roger joins us, says hello. Welcome in, John. Frankie B wants to know if this mini PC is metal or plastic. Sides feel metal. I might have to open it up and look. I think it's metal with a plastic bottom and a plastic top. That's what it seems to be. You have to open it up and take a look. We'll do that here shortly. In fact, I should hook up this other camera while we're waiting for this test to complete. I don't have the overhead plugged into power and the battery in it. I don't want to trust the battery. And these Sony cameras just don't hold a charge when they're off. I don't understand why. We've got 4 different Sony cameras, 2 different models, 3 different models. 3 of the 4 are different models. And they all do the exact same thing when they're off. They drain the lithium-ion battery significantly. Within a couple of days, the battery's completely dead. So my Canon and Panasonic cameras don't do that. They'll hold a charge for months. I don't know what's going on, but it's a nice camera, so I will just make sure it has power and not rely on the battery. In fact, over at Studio C, I'm hoping to have a better solution as well. All right. So there's our speeds, and we can go see file and save as. File, save. Go to the desktop, and we'll call it. I need to take my glasses off. Another issue I need to fix, Studio C, is the distance between me and the monitor. Okay, we'll call it. So, mark. It's right there. Perfect. Let's take a quick look at what our our temps are, rather, with the CPU, just as we've been using the machine and it's been sitting here. I'll go start there, close that, open this up a bit. Ah, oh, I meant. And CPU temps. Core temperatures. I think that's where we want to be. Oh, it's running nice and cool. Oh, I like that. Okay. That's the graphics card. Hold on. Where's my CPU temp? CPU package power. No, this is right. I mean, it's under the, it says APU, but this looks different than what I'm used to seeing. It's just says CPU. Not quite sure. However, let's see here. Let's put this over to the right. I'm going to get rid of camera 1 so you guys can see it. And then let's start Cinebench R23. Again, this is a portable program. No installation is required. Take a second to load here. And this loading time will only change by milliseconds if we swap out the drive with a faster drive. I know the numbers difference look good on the screen, but the actual, how does it perform numbers for a human being? Yeah, not likely going to notice much. All right, so let's bring up, let's start the test rather. Thanks. Down. So we're going to hit our highest temps probably within the first 2 minutes. So we won't, well, we could run the whole thing. Let's see. We'll see what the chat room wants to do. But usually you're going to generate your highest temps during the first 90 seconds of each of these tests. In each of these tests, it takes 10 minutes to warm up. So what it's doing is it's warming the computer up, and it's going to repeat this for 10 minutes. That's why there's a clock over here. And when the clock reaches 0, then it runs the benchmark when everything's nice and hot. But usually, for whatever reason, it's right when it gets started, we start seeing our peak temperatures. Let me take a look over here. There's our GPU temperature here. Got information on the M.2 drive and its temp. It's running nice and cool. Temperature on our DDR5 RAM, channel 0 and channel 1, each RAM module. And then we've got, yeah, this is the CPU. So we're in the right place. Got 8 cores. This is how much wattage they've drawn maximum. And then, of course, yeah, you can see the total on the whole CPU package reached 65, nearly exactly. And then if we look at our maximum temperatures here on the right side, yep, here it says maximum. We've so far hit a maximum of 85.5. What do I say my limit is where I get nervous? 85, right? Perfect. So this test is already run for over 2 minutes, and I think that's the best we're going to see. But if you're interested in seeing what the actual score is going to be, we can let it finish. It's just that we have to stall for time, waiting for this to be done. So in the chat room, you guys want me to let that finish and see a score, or should we stop the test and move to the next one and just check our heat there? What would you like me to do? Frankie B says, let it go and really test it. Okay, there's one vote. Now, it's very quiet. I do feel quite a bit of heat coming out of the back of it from a good 2 feet away. I can feel it, but I don't hear it. That may be because the air conditioner is running here in Phoenix, Arizona on a hot August day now. Yeah, that's putting out some heat. But as you can see by the temps on the screen, it's not too much heat. Patrick Manny says hello, and there's also Jose Lopez saying hello, Anthony Pete. Welcome in, guys. Jose Lopez wants it to stop. Mark Gaines wants it to go. We've got 2 goes and 1 stop so far. Squishy wants to know where's a good place to download Cinebench from. Just Google Cinebench R23, and you should find the first link. Should, if it's not a sponsored link, should be the link you're looking for. As I mentioned, everything that I use, you can just Google it and download it. It's all free. You can replicate everything I'm doing 100% legally and portable, so you're not installing anything on the computer. So that way, when you're done with it, you can delete it. It leaves nothing behind. But I do believe Cinebench has their own website and distributes it themselves. But I also know that there are some software distribution sites like Major Geeks that are reputable, but they're just full of ads. You're always better getting it right from the manufacturer. If it were me, I'd go to Google. I would type in download space Cinebench space R23, enter. And likely the result you're looking for will be right there. Okay, so far on this test, we're only about 5 minutes in, and our max temp has reached a little bit higher. It's gone up to 88 degrees Celsius, and that's a bit of a concern because that's only giving us about 12 degrees of headroom. Now, before the CPU throttles, that temperature is temporary. Like right now, many of the cores are in the 80s, and for whatever reason, whatever Cinebench is doing, they've jumped into the mid 80 degrees Celsius range, all 8 of the cores. And then within a few seconds, you will notice as we do this, those temperatures on the far left there Looking at the far left, those are the temps that we're experiencing in this moment. Once Cinebench finishes this drawing, watch those temps drop. The point I'm trying to make, yeah, see it's starting over. The temps will drop, and they'll drop pretty quickly. And it also, depends on which test Cinebench is throwing at it. The temps should be temporary. In other words, when you hit high temps, you shouldn't be staying there for a long time. The problem is, how do we define what a long time is? Is staying there for a minute at really high temp okay? Yes. Is staying there for an hour at a high temperature okay? Yes. Staying there at a high temperature and running it for 3 years? Yes. But here's the problem. If you're running your computer constantly hot, you've underpurchased for your needs. You're trying to take a fork and use it as a spoon, and it's not going to work too well with soup. So you've got the wrong tool. If you would spend more or build your own computer, if you're that demanding, you would be better off than taking something that's already pre-built that is, let's say, within the budget, and then trying to make it do a job it was never designed to do, and then you're not going to have a good experience. And you're degrading the components when you add that much power and heat over the course of time. So these units are designed, you can run gaming on them for hours, of course, with the Oculink or even using the internal graphics card, no problem. But if you're somebody that is worried about the temps, if you're fixated on that, just know you're going to be running well into, what you can see here on the screen, well into the upper 80-degree range, and it's going to be putting out hot air, and there's really nothing you can do about it. That's what it's designed to do. We've hit 89 so far as our highest. Now, we start throttling at 100 degrees Celsius, I think, on the AMD line. And AMD says that's okay. You're fine to do that. The problem is, if you do that constantly over time, you are shortening the life of your product. It's not a portable heater. It's not what it does. And if it's running that hot all the time, then you bought the wrong computer for your needs. In my opinion, as a technician, this is what I would tell you. If you came to me with a problem like that, that would be my answer to you. Let's get you a machine that conforms to your needs instead of you trying to limit yourself to what the machine can do. So it's very much an individual thing. Everybody's different. Some people will obsess about this. Some people won't even think about it. But Minisforum makes a very good, solid machine. It's easily upgradable. And I forgot what the warranty is. So you do have a warranty on this, of course. If you decide to order it from Amazon, you have a 30-day return period for free. You don't even have to have a reason for returning it. Say, I don't want it. Change my mind. They'll take it back, give you a full refund. And you will not have to pay for the shipping back if you're buying it from Amazon. Not from a third party on Amazon, but actually from Amazon. Anyway, what else are you guys talking about? Eugene Hildago joins in, says hello. Welcome in, Eugene. Okay, so it looks like that test has run, and let's run the other test right quick. Start here. There's our final number for the multi-core score. And again, you can download the hardware info utility here on the right and Cinebench R23 and run it on your machine and compare it to the results of this little tiny computer and compare the size of this computer to yours and compare the cost of this computer to what you've got into yours and look at the scores. So you don't have to take my word for nothing. I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm trying to give you a point of reference so you understand how much power is in this little package. All right, let's see. I got to walk up over to the screen here so I can see these temps. It looks like we have hit 90, so we're 10 degrees away from a throttle. But right now it's only running in the high 40s. And that is a normal, like when a computer user is using a computer, it's kind of like driving a car. Depending on what road you're on and how far you're going and how much traffic there is and what the weather's like and what the condition of the car is, there may be, when you get in your car and you drive somewhere, do you drive one speed no matter what? You're varying the speed depending on, I'm on a 25 mile an hour road. Now I'm turning onto a major 45 mile an hour road. Now I'm getting onto a 65 mile an hour freeway. Now I better pass somebody before I die. And so you give it the beans, as they say, and accelerate with the engine, giving you everything it's got so you can make your pass maneuver. And then you're back down to say 60, 70 miles an hour. And then you drive at 60 or 70, you get off the freeway, and now you're driving at, say, 45 again. Then you have to come to a stop at every light, and you're just idling. Well, that's exactly what your CPU is doing when you're using your computer. So depending on if you're browsing the web or you're paying some bills online, checking email, playing a game on Steam, your CPU is going to ramp up and ramp down, just like a car engine when you drive. And the problem is, just like a car, if you keep your foot down for a long period of time, not only are you burning through your gas, you're losing all your efficiency, you're creating a lot of noise. Same applies. But at some point, you're going to hit a wall, right? At some point, like there's no road long enough for you to do that. Maybe an airport runway for a short period of time. So that's why we say that these tests, these synthetic benchmarks, they're not realistic to the way users use computers, but it is doing its best to emulate that by running it through a series of processes where the CPU is just not cranked up maximum for 10 minutes. You can see the CPU is going up and down, back and forth, emulating actual usage. There are some very heavy CPU resource intensive games out there that could result in your CPU running very, very hot. That's okay. If that's a game you play 8 hours a day every day, you probably didn't buy the best machine for that game. But again, that's a very extreme example. There's not many people that are going to develop a PC or build a PC or acquire a PC specifically for one game. Those people are out there. Like I've seen some amazing home setups for flight simulators. Somebody's really into flying planes and they want to emulate being in a cockpit. And so they set that up to just do that one thing. Now, yes, you could use it for email and browsing the web, but it's a weird setup. It would be like trying to browse your email in the cockpit of a plane. So I imagine when they do actual, work, they probably have a laptop or another computer somewhere. I don't think they sit in this emulated cockpit. Maybe they do. I don't think they do. Again, that's pretty unusual. So if somebody's playing a game that they're so into, that's the only game they care about, make sure you buy the right hardware that's going to optimize with that game. Even if it means you got to spend a little bit more, over time you'll spend less. You'll end up with a more reliable machine and a better gaming experience. But, the fact that there's just not that many people that would do that. All right, so after about 5 minutes, still the highest temp we're seeing is 90 or 89.9. However, the PC is not crashing. It's not getting loud. As far as I know, we are not throttling yet. I think we have to hit 100 to throttle. And throttle just means it slows it down. It's like when they tell you you've got unlimited bandwidth on your cellular phone, but you really don't. Once you reach a certain amount of data, they slow you down. Same with, if you're paying for 2 gigs of data a month, let's say, you're paying for 2 gigs of high-speed data is what you're doing. And then after you use that 2 gigs, then for free, usually on the cell phone companies, you have unlimited data, but it's very, very slow. It's discouraging to use it. I was going somewhere with that. Patrick Manning wants to know if you've used Cinebench R24. Well, here's the problem, Patrick. If I use Cinebench R24, how do we compare the results with all of the previous Cinebench R23 results we've collected? So if you wanted to know how does this machine run compared to the one I did with Cinebench R23, they're not the same test. So all those previous tests I've done would be useless as a comparison for the new test I'm doing. So for consistency, by keeping everything the same, we can go back 2 years or whatever, 6 months, and running the same test on all machines, even if it's not the latest version, still getting an accurate comparison, side by side, same situation, same software, different hardware under the same circumstances with these results. So that's why if I switch to R24, we can throw away all the R23 results we have ever done because they're meaningless now when we're comparing it to the new stuff. And, that's the problem with testing. Now, at some point, I'll have to do that. At some point, Cinebench R23 just won't be enough. So when we reach that point, we'll change it. We are just about done with the test, or the warm-up rather, and then the test starts. You'll see the clock counting down over here. It reaches 0, and then the benchmark runs when everything's nice and hot. Tomorrow, Friday's show, we are live again at 1 o'clock Pacific time, 4 p.m. Eastern. We're going to do part 2 of the Johnsbow build. Do you remember the Johnsbow build? We started that a couple of months ago. Well, come to find out, the Johnsbow build supports the back-connected motherboards, the motherboards that have all the connectors on the rear. I did not know that. So tomorrow, we're going to take the motherboard out of the Johnsbow, take the heatsink off of it, take everything off of it. And I've got an Asus motherboard with the back connectors. And I've got a CPU. We can either move the CPU we've got now. I've got another like 13600K or something I can throw in there. And then put it all back together. Of course, what that's going to do is it's going to leave me with a motherboard and CPU, which means I have to use them, which means there's going to be another build. So I'm trying to get rid of these, or finish these builds. And sometimes I have to purchase parts to finish them. And then when I'm done, I got all these leftover parts that I can make another machine out of that I didn't want to do. So it looks like we've got a few builds coming up here in August, and hopefully we'll get through all of them. But tomorrow, part 2 of the Johnsbow build, which should hopefully complete it. Should be able to reassemble everything. And I'm highly motivated because I want to take it over to Studio C in one piece. I don't want to lose any pieces or screws because there's about 12 different computers in various stages of building or repair that I have to find the panels and make sure they're all closed up so they're easier to transport. Nothing gets scratched or damaged. And as I mentioned, no little parts that are included with each specific case falls on the floor and I don't know where it goes. Yeah. You know how many parts there are when we put these things together. All the screws you've used. I don't want them to get mixed up. So I'm highly motivated to get these builds completed so I can move them to Studio C. Expect to see more builds in August for that reason. All right. You guys in the chat room, what CPU are you running on your computer? An AMD? Which AMD? An Intel? Which Intel? I'm kind of curious here in the chat room, what's your average, what our average viewers, how old, I suppose I want to say our average viewers' computers are, or how new. So if you want to share that with us, I'm just waiting for the test to finish. And Shamim says it is my first PC. It's an AMD Ryzen 5 3600. Is that what you're using right now? It's a good chip. Patrick Manny said he's using an i9 10900K watching the stream. Yeah, that 4-year-old chip is amazing. Even the 10850K, 10900K, those are even to this day, those are fantastic. That's a really nice machine. Squishy says he's got an Intel 11700, and I think that Ron Barnish said he had an 11700. Is that the K? No, 700 would not be a K. 3D Everything says he's got an Intel Core i9 X7920. Oh, he's got a workstation. Nice. Squishy says his Intel 11700 is the 11700F, which means it's got no built-in graphics. So I bet that was a good bargain price. Charles Eslick said he's got an Intel 12th Gen i7. Richard Palmentier's using an Intel i5 12400. Mark Baggett said the laptop I'm using right now is just running an Intel Core i3. I'd like to save up some money and get a better laptop. Mark Gaines with a Ryzen 5 2600. Wow, is it that old? Ryzen 9 5900X from Dave Batt. That's what he says he's running. Luke Greeny has got an AMD Ryzen 5 7600 in the Project Zero build. John Paul Bacon says he's got the Asus ProArt AM5 X670 motherboard with a Ryzen 9 7950X3D with 2 PCIe 5x4 NVMe ports and 2 PCIe4 NVMe ports. He built it John Paul Bacon, he must have recently built that. But 3D Everything, who mentioned having the Intel Core i9 X7920, that workstation chip, he said he built it about 6 years ago. That's the good thing. When you spend that kind of money, you can see how much longer the computer lasts and how, I'm assuming, trouble-free it is during its time. When you want to buy just the cheapest thing because the excuse is that's all I can afford, it will cost you more over time usually. It's actually cheaper if you're planning on keeping the computer for more than 5 or 6 years to get yourself a really, really good computer so you don't have to deal with the problems that cheap computers have, limitations to upgrading, airflow issues, not to mention, when you talk about the critical components like a motherboard or CPU, you want to get something really good that's going to last, not something that's good for today. But what will be good 6 years from now? Expect to pay a little more. Maybe you can finance it, PayPal or other services. You won't be financing it for 6 years. You'll have it long paid off. And overall, in my experience, because you're not having to replace the computer as often, you're spending far less in the total cost involved with ownership from the time it's born to the time it's dead. Or you're just done with it and you give it away or you sell it. Okay, there's our final test. That's our single core. And you can see there in the top left, we've got 1,794 points. And then if you look down at the scoreboard, you can see that's right at the top and faster than all those other chips they've got on the list. Now, there are newer chips than that. And clearly R24 would show us more relevant examples. But let's go ahead and close this. What was our maximum temp was 90. We never went over 90. And when it hit 90, it didn't stay there very long. So I'm okay with that. I'm also not going to be pushing the computer this hard. Maybe my video editor will push it, but that's only during rendering. And rendering is usually anywhere from 5 minutes to an hour at most. So even if I'm hitting that temp, I'm only doing it for like an hour. Let's go ahead and shut this. Wait, let me apply my Windows 10 optimizer first. Might as well. And then while that's applying, we'll make sure we have the latest AMD Adrenalin software. If you're running an AMD processor, you want the AMD Adrenalin software. It's going to make your computer performance and reliability so much better. And if you have the Adrenalin software, be sure and check for updates regularly. Your computer will run without the AMD Adrenalin software, but it will run better with the AMD Adrenalin software. So it's not required, but highly, highly recommended. Paul Connolly joining us, saying hello. Again, we are live and unscripted. There's your actual boot time right there. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to shut this down, and we'll go back over to camera 1. Shut down. You know what we could probably do? Shut this down, and maybe just jump right on over to the close-up camera. Let's see what happens. Hey, look at that. All right. Bear with me as I try and get organized here. So one of the first things I want to do is get this camera to focus. Come on. And we're going to unplug everything when we work on the inside of a computer. Turning it off is not good enough. I'm also going to go ahead and take out the USB dongle for the keyboard and mouse, just in case it interferes with us getting the panel off, which I don't think it will, but that's okay. We take everything out. Now, on the bottom of the PC, we've got 4 rubber feet, and I'm assuming under those rubber feet, there's going to be the screws we need. Now, it sure would be nice if they had holes in these feet. I don't know where the screw holes are. Sometimes they're right at the edge. Sometimes they're right in the middle. And getting these up, these rubber feet, because they're attached with an adhesive. Sometimes the adhesive comes off with the little rubber foot. And we need to get something under there to pry it up. I'm wondering if I have like a spudging tool here that might do that better than my fingernails. A guitar pick would work. I don't play guitar though. So I bought these plastic spudging tools, and they give you a bunch of them because they're designed to wear as you use them. The plastic edges become dull or bent, and then you just throw it away and use another one, and they're pretty inexpensive. But here's what one looks like. Got a flat, pointy tip right here. And then it's got like a flat blade driver here. And if you look closely, it's got a little cutout right there, so you can grab into something and use leverage to pull it up. So the idea is we use this flat end and we try and get underneath the foot. So we want to go straight down and then pull up and see if we can lift that foot up without damaging the case or the foot. We can damage this all day. We got a whole package of these. That'll be a mission for Mara, is to find these and add it to the video notes. Paul Connolly with a $10 Australian contribution. He goes, this is my late fee. Thank you, Paul. Good day. Good to see you. See, this isn't really a good tool for what we're doing here because it's plastic and it's so flexible. I think we're going to need something, at least I need something a little more firm. So what else do I have? I think I have a metal one here. I could also use a flat blade screwdriver, but I just want to be careful. So here's another thing I bought from Amazon. These are just some cheap spudging tools. And it's got this metal flexible spudging tool that you could mar plastic if you're not careful. I just hope it's not too flexible for this. Now, if I could feel where the screw is, I could just use my cordless screwdriver and put a drill bit on it and go through it and leave a little hole in these, which would be so much easier. And I feel like these spudging tools are just too flexible. These feet are on strong. So I don't really think I have a choice but to use a flat blade driver. Richard Palmentier with a $10 super chat says, here's my late fee. Thanks, guys. Thank you, Richard. James Carter mentions he's using a Ryzen 7 5800X. Boy, it's almost 50-50 on the processors, isn't it? A lot of Ryzens. Yeah, I didn't count them out. But it almost seems like there's as many AMD as there are Intel, almost exactly. That's interesting. I'm looking in my tool drawer here for something I think might work. For a while, Intel was giving away this tool with their processors. And this is like a little pen tool. I've never had any need to use it. One side of it is a bit holder that's got a very small Phillips on one end and a very small flat blade on the other end. And that goes in one end of this pen. It's not a pen, though. It's a screwdriver. Like so. And then on the other end, we have the same thing, but the bits are just a little bit larger. So I want the flat blade, and it just locks in. And of course, that's the cap. These were free, I don't know. Once some sort of CPU I purchased, I think, included the little driver. And this is the first time I've ever used it. I'm at least seeing the foot come up with this because it's much more rigid. And as we peel this back, look at it tore the foot. Look at that. I tore it. That's a problem. And I will let Minisforum know that is too strong of adhesive. Well, now we know where the hole is, right? So if we know where the hole is, we could probably punch through this. It's right about, can't really feel it. Yeah, that adhesive is on there very strong. And you can see that's where the hole, where the screw is. I wonder if I could, let me see. I have some small drill bits. I think I may have already moved them. Maybe I left some. Let's take a look to the dungeon. Let's see. Drill bits, drill bits. I am so good, I already moved those to the new studio. That's how efficient I am. Check one other room. Wah, wah. No drill bits. They are moved. Every single one of them. Moved them. Or I should have. What can you do? What can you do? There's one other place. There's a maybe here. Hold on. Maybe. No. Nope. Nope. Man, am I thorough. Okay, well, too bad. Too bad, Carey. You missed out. Darn it. Well, hey, Studio C is going to be great. Just want to say. Now, I'm just going to go ahead and pull that off. At least that one came off in one piece. But you can see the adhesive and how it bends and folds away, making it very difficult to put back on. And you'll be fine the first 2 times, but by the 3rd time, that adhesive won't be sticky anymore. And that's the problem. A foot this big they could have easily put a hole in it. And I'm thinking if I have something sharp and pointy, like that. These are like, they call these probe tools. I call them dental picks. And they got little plastic covers on them so you don't poke yourself, because they are sharp. And these come in handy for just such an occasion, I think. So if the hole is approximately, I'm not going to measure it, I'm going to eyeball it. It'd be right about here, don't you think? I think so. Right there. It definitely went all the way down. So if I wasn't getting into the recess for the screw. Now these holes here, these are for mounting your VESA bracket. In case you were curious, these don't open the case. This is when you put that VESA bracket on for wall mounting, the VESA bracket will go into these holes, in case you were wondering. Anyway, so I was where? Right about here? This hole it made is so tiny, I think it's, yeah, look how far down that went. So that's definitely where we want to be. And then if I take the next size tool, which would be, I know I've got one in here. Those are probably going to be Phillips head. Let me see. Here, this would be probably perfect. This driver right here. See if Mara can find the driver on. She's going to quit. This is ANEX 1x75. So what I'm thinking is, now that we've got the hole here, can take that out, put this one in, since I don't have a drill bit. And hopefully, you know, if I'm not going too far, I'm hitting the plastic, it means I'm off a little. Hopefully I can find it. There it is, right there. Found it. See, that's all I had to do. All Minisforum has to do is just put a little hole in the foot. Not that hard. Then you should be able to get in there with your screwdriver. You know what? I don't feel this biting at all. Nothing. So likely this driver is not, like the bit is too wide. I gotta look down inside there because I want to see what I'm trying to unscrew here. Oh wow, that is super tiny screw down in there. So that's going to require a jeweler screwdriver to get out. Why do you have all those tools, Carey? You never use them. Watch this video and you'll see me go through a whole bunch of tools. Let's do this kit here. I've been going back to this kit a lot. A viewer, I believe Nick Poverman, sent this years ago. And I just was working on desktops. You know, when do you need a precision driver for desktops? And every once in a while, a laptop would roll in. And I would grab from this kit. But I very rarely used it. And now with all these mini PCs, I'm using this almost more than the regular desktop driver. So I am curious if I grab the biggest one, if that will fit. Now, you see this piece is wider than the hole. So it won't even go down in the hole. So we're going to have to use a much smaller driver. This one is much narrower. It's one of the smallest Phillips they have. I think it's too small. So we're going to go to the middle one. These three are Phillips, and then these three are flat blade. You get 3 of each. This is our third shot. Is this going to work? Seems like they made this difficult to open, or I am doing something wrong. This is why we do these live, so you can see the struggle or the ease with which you can get into these things. Maybe you're not supposed to get into it. Maybe I'm doing it completely wrong. This lid is magnetic and plastic. I didn't realize. Remember, I do all these live, so you get what you get. There's our 2 Wi-Fi antennas here. And then we've got screws here. So I'll bet you everything's from the top. And as far as getting into the bottom, I guess on this model, it's unnecessary. So I'm going to put these feet back on. So it is possible, right, to do a little research before we do the video to see how this opens. But you have to understand that for me, I like to figure things out. I don't want to go to a movie like a mystery and then have somebody tell me who done it. You've taken the fun out of the movie. So this is how I learn. I like to reverse engineer things and take them apart instinctively the way we've dealt with, for example, most of the minis that we've had taken apart have the feet covering the screws. So that's why I expected the screws to be there, but it appears, and again, if you just read the directions, but I'm trying to figure it out without reading directions. I want it to be instinctive and obvious to somebody like me that has a history of taking apart machines. And of course, it's not unusual. There are a couple of Miniforums where the top comes off. I think the NPB5 and the NAB7 have the push button top. But there's nothing on the top that tells us that. There's nothing on the top that says this comes off. I mean, that would have been nice. But regardless, we figured it out. That's all that matters. And put these tools away before I poke myself. And since I went through that adventure and I figured it out in reality rather than trusting what somebody said, I have shared this experience with you. This is as close as I can get to you being in the room with me, and we study this together. And the rule is we're not looking at instructions. If we look at the instructions, we're cheating. But remember, I'm making an educational video. You may just want to get something done and you don't have time for playing around. That's who the instructions are for. You may not have time to go see the movie, so you'll just watch a review of the movie and then they'll give away all the spoilers and now you don't have to go see the movie. I don't know. That doesn't sound too fun to me, but you know, you do you. So obviously we have a screw in each corner. Now, if I was paying better attention, we did look at the break apart, the exploded view of this on their website. And in fact, it does show the top comes off. But I thought the top was screwed in. In other words, I thought we had to get screws under here out that screwed into the corners of this lid. I did not realize this lid just pulled up. And that's my bad. You know, I could have tried it. But on the other hand, if I tried it and it came up, I didn't learn anything. I just verified what I thought. This is much more informational for me. I am glad that I tried to take the feed off and I tried to get at it from that direction so I know why. Otherwise, I don't know why. And it's in my personality. I want to know why. So that's become clear to me. That's the bottom of a screw down there. There's something screwing down this way. It's not, the screw's not going in this way. It appears the screw's coming out. But I don't know why there's an access hole if that's true. That should just be completely flat then. So I'm a little confused at that design, but I'd have to take it apart more to understand it. Now, this is our cooling fan, and I love to see a cooling fan up on top where the solid-state drive and RAM are. You don't see that very often. And then these are your two Wi-Fi antennas, and they put them up at the top, which is the perfect location. And if I very carefully want to lift this out, I don't want to yank those antennas off or break them. They are fragile. Something is holding us in here. Yeah, I can see how that could be a problem. Take a quick look here. I need my flashlight to see this. Bear with me for a second. There's a bunch of wires. So you've got this antenna wire and this antenna wire. Go one stage lower on that. All right, and they run right underneath here, and they don't give you much slack. And then on the other side, you've got a power cable for this fan. So it is being held in, and you don't want to use force on this. These are soldered down. Your antennas are soldered. If we go this way, we have a piece of tape here that's keeping the antenna wires out of the way. And that's really what's holding us back, is that piece of tape. If I remove it, so that piece of tape, see it. Piece of tape right there, right up against the NVMe heatsink. And the underside of this, see, this black wire right here, it's got us, we can't move this any further because of that black wire. We're stuck. So you'll have to remove the tape, which is right up against the heatsink, or we can remove the plug for the fan, which I think is the easiest thing to do. So this is a hard thing to show you, but there is a little plug connected to this fan. You can also see the thermal pads for the NVMe that's there and the NVMe that's empty. The thermal pad is just there, ready to be used if you were to put an NVMe drive in there. So I think it'd be easier to just unplug this fan, which is a little black connector going into a white socket. And you got to be careful when you pull these little tiny connectors off. See, there's a little white socket and a black fan cable. And now I can bend this back, and you can see the fan blades here, and you can see the thermal pads. And we can very carefully rest it. Again, we don't want to pull these wires off. Now there is a piece of tape right there. And if we remove that, then we'll have a lot more freedom to move this lid. However, the other option would be removing this NVMe drive, and I suspect there's our Wi-Fi card under there. This is your standard Kingston. They use a lot of Kingston drives in these. And what I thought was a heatsink for the NVMe drive is a heatsink for your DDR5 RAM. But I don't know why we're only heatsinking. Oh, so so this heatsink attaches to both RAM modules, the bottom of this module and the top of the module below it. I'm gonna get the camera to focus without breaking this thing. Need another hand. So there's our Wi-Fi card. And so what I'm saying is that black and white wire that's running to the Wi-Fi card, those wires clip on. They're covered with a piece of plastic right now. I have to set this down or I'm going to break it. This little piece of plastic right here comes off, and these wires unclip. Then you can remove the whole lid and push it aside. Or you can do what I'm doing, which is being very careful with it so I don't break these antennas. There's your CMOS battery. And again, you've got two DDR5 modules there. If we wanted to put the Oculink in, we would take the Oculink accessory here, like so. And we got to find the Oculink port on this. So the Oculink port is right here, right above the HDMI port. And I'm going to remove the little dust cover from the Oculink. And you'll see it's just an empty hole. And then what I'll do, and again, I'm trying to be very careful not to break the antenna wires. What I want to do is take out, should be a pre-installed screw right here for this M.2 drive, which there is. We're going to take out that screw. That's just a standoff screw, intended to be used for an NVMe drive to be held in, or in this case, our Oculink port. So you're going to follow where the groove is to know which way to install this. You'll see it's going to bend over to your left, so it's not a straight on right to the hole. It kind of, it's accommodating where the hole is, and that black wire is super tight. Very careful with this. We're going to slide that in just like an NVMe drive. Bring it down just like an NVMe drive. And we're going to secure it right there through that hole, just like an NVMe drive. But instead of having an NVMe drive, we now have Oculink port, which, let me see if I can get it to sit better. There may be a trick to it. We want to be able to access this port through this hole. So we want to make sure that it's going down far enough. Sometimes you can even push it forward a little bit into the hole to lock it in, but we don't want to pull it out of the M.2 slot. So I feel that when it locks in. See, to me, the bottom of that is still not quite right, but it may be enough. And again, I'm not reading any directions. I'm just going off of the way I think it should be. I don't know if there's anything preventing this from going any further down. It feels like it's just about a millimeter off. But it may be that when we plug the Oculink cable into this port, that it's open enough that it'll go in there. I think it is. But you'll see that the HDMI port is in there perfect. In fact, all of these ports, the display port's a little bit low, and the Oculink port's a little bit high. So anyway, it's probably fine. And then we can put our M.2 drive back in. Or can we? Time for new glasses, maybe. All right, great. So yes, you can easily upgrade your NVMe drive or add another NVMe drive or change your RAM to 48 gigs each for a total of 96. You can also upgrade your Wi-Fi card if you wanted Wi-Fi 7 or Wi-Fi 8 or 9 or 10 in the future. And then this little connector right, is it this one or it's this one? Yeah, this one next to the fan. This is our power connector, and this one we don't use. When I say power connector, I'm referring to the fan, this fan right here. You have to remember to plug that back in. I love that they're cooling this area. I think that's fantastic, no pun intended. We're going to bring this over once again. And because I didn't unplug these wires, I don't have to plug that light back in. So I'm trying to be lazy about it. don't hold on to these antennas. Try and hold on. So I'm very conscious of this, and I haven't talked about it, but if you watch closely the way I handle parts, you can learn a lot about what I'm not saying. So you'll see me go to grab these and I go, oh, no, I don't want to grab those, because if I break these off, I'm breaking off my Wi-Fi antennas, and they're very fine and delicate. And you know what? I'm just going to grab something else. I wish they had some kind of a pull on this. So I'm trying to, at the same time, I'm trying not to rip off or grab these bases. I also don't want to pull too hard on these antennas and break them or pull them off their solder points. It's just a little teeny tiny bit of solder that's holding those on. And yes, if you break it, you can go get a soldering iron, and if you know how to solder, you can fix that. But better yet, if you're just careful, you won't have to go through that nonsense. Completely avoidable. Once that's reseated, then we can put these screws back in, and you'll see the screw itself, it's a long shoulder, which is great. So you're not, having to go through turning for the entire length of that screw. You're just doing that part right there at the end. Pop that in there. Ron Barnett says the black wire needs to go on top of the card. You think so? Luke Greeny also says run the Wi-Fi wire over the top of the card. Well, you know what? Sorry, guys. I just now saw that. So I'm glad I saw it now. Let's see if that makes a difference with the seating. Because I didn't feel, when I was putting the card in, I didn't feel like something was stopping it. You can see just pulling this out. Oh, and I didn't hook the fan back up. I forgot to hook this up. So I'm glad I'm opening it up anyway. Okay, the black wire. Do you think this wire needs to go over the card? Let's try it. Because black and white wires run together to the card. So you wouldn't just move the black one. See what I'm saying? They're a pair. We can lift them up. There's the white one. That's one antenna. Being very careful. Try to avoid touching the top of the motherboard if possible. Zoom out a little bit here. Okay, so let's see what we can do. Yeah, I do see how the wires are wrapped around. See, the wires, they're wrapped around the standoff. So this, when we install it, there's nothing under here to go anywhere below the standoff. As long as the wires aren't higher than the standoff, whether the wires are above or below will make no difference, because the standoff is much higher, and that's what's preventing us from getting lower. Not these wires are not in the way. So far as I can tell. If anything could get in the way, it's this battery. But even I suspect that's still lower than the standoff. So when you guys are suggesting moving the black wire, are you getting that from some documentation, or are you just making suggestions you think might work? Yeah, I mean, it's close. It's just a little tiny bit high. I think it'll be okay. Yeah, the only thing I see close to coming up to the height of this card is the battery, and even that has a good millimeter of space, or 2 millimeters of space. So there's really nothing holding this card up so far as I can tell, other than the standoff. Maybe the standoff is loose. Maybe the standoff is just a little too tall. Or maybe that's the way they want it designed. I don't know. Let's see. We're going to bring this over. I will plug the fan in this time. Remember, if you ever see me grab the antennas, once I realize I'm doing it, I let them go. Pay attention to that. You'll see me do that quite often. This connector only goes on one way, and it's going to be a very difficult angle for you to see because, quite frankly, it's difficult for me to see. So this design could use a little work, quite frankly. I'm happy to have the fan here, but you know, at the cost of getting into this computer a little more difficult. I wish these connectors were like snap-in connectors that were attached to the plastic, and that way you would just make contact rather than physical plugs. Not much you can do about the antennas though, but at least as far as powering the fan, you know, I might need my extra strong glasses to even see this. Maybe a downside of a mini PC is you're working basically like on a laptop. These are mobile, low power parts, and everything's compressed into a very small space. So if you have the patience and the tools and the dexterity to get into these little tight spaces, I would be interested to see how they build this at the factory. I imagine this lid goes on first with this little cable, and then they put these down, and then they solder these. So the way they assemble it almost requires some level of disassembly instead of just a panel that's removed. So not that easy to get into for your average person. There it goes. Yeah. And that's with, you know, piano fingers. You know, they're not big sausage fingers. If you're a big person trying to get your fingers in there without busting these wires off, holy cow. They've got to find a better way to do that. It could have been easier. It's possible. It just could have been easier. That's all I'm trying to say. Having the magnetic top come off, it's really just a decorative cover. That's all that is. Maybe instead of gluing these down, they could put them down magnetically so you can just pull them up. That would be a nice option. David Graham with a $2 super chat says, just adding my 2 cents plus $1.98. Thank you, David. Don't over tighten these. Once they get snug, stop, because this is plastic and you will crack it. If you're forcing something, you're probably doing it wrong. All right. Oh, we have stickers. Ventilation. Ports. This is where all the heat from the CPU is going to come out, this metal heatsink here. And these areas draw air in on both sides. So that's how the airflow functions. So if we plug in HDMI, I'm wondering about this Oculink port. Is it lined up good enough? I would need an Oculink cable. I wonder if they include an Oculink cable. Now, I'm not going to test this, but I mean, I will later, not today. I just want to see if the cable's going to work. I think it'll be fine. I've thought that before and been wrong. So let's find out now. So I can move on with confidence. All right. Here's our cable. Here's our Oculink port. Gotta go that direction. Yeah. And it locks in. There's a little release button, just like DisplayPort. You push the little button, and it comes out. So we're okay. It's just like a DisplayPort, just tinier. Here's what the Oculink end looks like. You'll notice one side of it is the corner bent. Background. So it only goes in one way. Then that's your little latch on top to release it. All right, I'll put this back in here for our review of this on another day because we are running out of time. Just a little tease. Ron Barnish says, I forgot my normal first chat. Hello. Well, we're not too formal here, Ron. We're all friends. You don't have to be proper. All right. Let's plug the keyboard back in. Either of those ports is fine. Or any of the ports that are USB are fine. HDMI, we'll plug that back in. Our barrel style power here is here. What a view, the top of my head. You can look right through my glasses. All right, and then we'll plug in either of these ports, doesn't matter. Just got to put it in the right direction. Then we'll turn this on. And then we'll switch over to our HDMI input. Hopefully it's booting and we didn't break it. Okay. A lot of tools out that I did not need. You talk about doing it the hard way. Yes, I definitely did that the hard way. But I can tell you, in the 80s, this is how we learned without anybody there to give us knowledge. We learned to pay attention, to reverse engineer it. We used to just call it taking it apart. But these days we call reverse engineer it, and you'll put it together. You see how it works. And then that knowledge will help you fix other things in that same genre. So if you're fixing a small gadget, you could probably fix other small gadgets once you figure out how they come apart and how they're built, they're usually mostly the same. Minisforum really threw me on this because those rubber feet and not finding any screws, we've done other videos where we've had to remove the rubber feet from the Minisforum, and I complain about it. So I've been sort of conditioned like Pavlov's dogs. I see those rubber feet and I think, oh no. And that's where I started without even trying to see if the lid came up. I think I did kind of pull on it lightly, but it's a pretty strong magnet. But this is why I share these experiences. It's as if you did it with me, and now you will know what to expect if you repeat what I've done. You have shared this learning experience and learning it through discovery without learning through what they call instructions, which to me are cheater. Those are game cheats, cheat codes. I'll find a word. Yeah, I'm not into the cheat codes. I'll figure it out. Otherwise, you're not learning. You're just following instructions. You'd make a good soldier. All right, with that, do you have any final questions for me? I'm happy to address anything that's on your mind with regards to either the mini PC here or other tech-related questions. I'm going to go ahead and move this overhead camera out of the way. My thanks to the folks at Minisforum for letting us review this and figure out how it's put together and how to take it apart. It is a little powerhouse. It's a pretty darn fast computer. And as you could tell from the comments in the, when I asked people what system, what CPU they were running, a lot of people have Ryzen 5s and things like that. This is going to go much faster. 10900, this is going to go faster. And, sorry, I'm just trying to put my camera away. It's cheaper than if you built the equivalent system with the same amount of RAM, a desktop processor version of this mobile processor. And you're going to use more power. This uses less power because it's mobile parts. All right, let me step around. See if there's any questions. Richard Palmentier says the Oculink end looks like a DisplayPort cable. Exactly. It just looks like a shrunken down version of a DisplayPort cable, and it locks and unlocks the same. Michael Lavelle says help in the past was a user group on your local bulletin board system, or BBS. It was kind of. For me personally, it wasn't really, a bulletin board system wasn't really there for help. It was there for communication, to hang out with friends in a virtual way. We had computer clubs, on the other hand. So if you owned an Apple, or you owned an Atari, or you owned a Commodore, there were clubs for each of those 8-bit computers, right? There were Atari clubs, Apple computer clubs, and Commodore computer clubs. Maybe even Timex, Sinclair, Zenith, maybe, I don't know. But I can tell you, the BBSs really weren't a place for tech support, not in my world. And I mean, I spent a lot of time on a bulletin board system. We're talking 1980, 81 through probably 94. I mean, I spent a lot. Right around 94 is when I was introduced, when I was working at Intel, I was introduced to Mosaic and the internet. I'm sure I told you this story, but maybe you haven't heard it. I'm working at my desk at my lab at Intel. I love my job. I love the people I work with. I carpool with a guy named Steve. It's 32 miles from where I live to get to the Intel campus in Chandler. So from Glendale, Arizona to Chandler, Arizona, 32 miles one way. Love my job. So we decide, we both live west, and he's like, hey, why don't we carpool? I'll drive a couple days a week. You drive a couple days a week. Great. Now, he worked in a different department. I'm not even sure what he did. And we just hung out. We have conversation in the car. Remember, it's rush hour. Everybody's going to work, and we're in it for 32 miles. When work's over, we're back at it for 32 miles, come home, and we're doing this Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So I know the guy pretty well. right? Because we spend a lot of time in the car together, even though we don't work together. He's in a completely different department. And again, I'm not even sure what he does. Never thought to ask. Anyway, one day he comes into my cubicle, my lab. It was really a lab I worked in, not a cubicle. And he says, "Oh my gosh, you got to see this. This is so amazing." Like he was so excited. What is it? What is it? Come on, come here. And he takes me to his cubicle. And he's got a satellite image of the area we're in on the screen. And he says, "Look, it says there's clear skies and 110 degrees outside. Look, look." And he's got mosaic up, and it's a satellite image, probably a live satellite image or a very recent one. And I'm confused because I'm like, "Steve, there's a window right there. You can see it's clear skies and 115 degrees. You can just look and see. You can certainly feel the temperature. Just stick your finger out the window or put your hand out there." But I just thought it was the most ridiculous thing. Like, he was so excited about it. I'm like, "That's so stupid. Turn your head, you know?" And that was how I was introduced to the internet. And I just thought, what a complete waste of time. So I'm sure that was an interesting drive home from work. Like, what was up? So what? Things have changed since then. Ron Barnish says, "Now that I've gone through this experience, I'll never forget how this comes apart." Well, the problem is it doesn't have the model number on it. It'd be nice if Minisforum would say, "This is the EliteMini UM790 Pro." Like if they took that and embossed it on there, then I'd know, oh, that's the one with the magnetic lid. But if I lose this sleeve, it's just a black box. There's no writing that even says Minisforum. So you got to keep the sleeve, or you got to write on the box. So I would like to see this. Like, I'd like to take scissors, cut that out, and just tape it. I mean, for most of you, you're only going to have one mini PC. But for me, I have lots of them. And one opens one way, one opens another way. Most of them are pretty obvious. This is maybe the second time that I did it completely backwards on the mini. Or maybe it's the 200th time. I can't remember. Like that Starship computer from Ace Magic, you're not supposed to open it. Even though in their advertising, they initially said it was upgradable, the RAM and the storage. After my video, they retracted that. So now when you go to the website, it tells you all about the specs of the Starship, but it doesn't say you can't upgrade it, but the words that said you can, those are gone off the website. So as far as I can tell, it's not meant to be taken apart. You can do it, but it's very complicated. This is also more complicated in the same vein. There's nothing that indicates that this lid opens. So that's complaint number one. I'd like to see something like on the other Minisforum, like on the nabs, you've got the little pictures of the fingers in the corner. They need to do something. I would like to see this piece have some kind of a pull tab to take it out. With the fan, remember, this is running right now. We still have it on. You'll see the fan is running. We don't hear it. But I'd like to see these antennas attached magnetically, unless that interferes with the signal. There's got to be a better way to implement putting a fan. Maybe instead of this, figure out how to put the fan on the lid, and then give us enough slack cable that we can take the lid and set it on the ground. This is how much slack cable you should have. And then have a way to route that cable so it doesn't interfere with the fan. That's the tricky part. Or you put little electrical pads and then connectors so that when you close it, just like the bezel of some computer cases that have RGB on the front, when you pull the panel off, you'll notice there's a little pad. And then there are pins. And then when you push it together, the pins hit the pad, and that's how they make the electrical connection without a physical wire to unplug. Something, say you had RGB in the lid, it would be wired to this little pad. And then that pad would connect onto your case, which would also have a wire running to it, to these little springy pins that go in and out like a car shock. Push that on. That would be really cool. I imagine it would add to the cost of manufacturing. And this is probably not something you're going to open very often. So I don't know. When I'm judging this, I'm having a hard time determining how to rate it because it's so powerful and it's so quiet and it's got all these ports and the Oculink, which will be great for gamers. But then if you need to open it up and change your NVMe or your storage, your RAM, you're going to have to take that heatsink off of the existing RAM, which is again going to be stuck by an adhesive. You want to be careful with that. And you don't want the adhesive sticking to your old RAM. Then you've got to attach that heatsink to your new RAM. It's not like it's going to come with its own. You have to use the one that's in here. If you were to take the fan and not plug it back in, and you were to take the heatsink off of the RAM and not use it, the system will still work, but it's going to get hot. So those are there for a reason. They're not there for looks. You can't see it. So Minisforum spent extra money for that fan and extra money for that RAM heatsink, so this will run cooler. But if you're somebody who doesn't push the system very hard, you probably over-purchased, right? So you're using this as a media PC. It's way overkill for a media PC, but in theory, you could take, you could unplug that fan and not use it, this top one, and you could remove you could say you were upgrading the RAM. You could take the RAM out. Either way, the heatsink's got to come off though, I think. And then put your own RAM in without the heatsink and leave it out. But if you change how you use the computer and now you've forgotten you've done that and now you're using the computer for another purpose that's using a lot of resources, you might run into heat issues. And then you want to plug the fan back in and put that heatsink back on. So yeah, I mean, the fan and the heatsink are great. The port's great. The size of the machine, great. The sound, it's quiet, it's great. Performance, great. Access to upgrade, one of the most difficult I've ever seen. So we go with the really high highs and then a single really low low. There's got to be a better way to implement that. Other than that, I don't have any complaints. You know, sometimes you lack ports or sometimes you lack power. I don't know, on a scale of 1 to 10, give me some clues. What would you say? Good and the bad, or is there anything else I've missed that you like or dislike? Let me know in the chat room right now. Let's see what you think. John Paul Bacon says, do you have any thoughts about the issues with Intel CPUs? So John's referring to a number of issues that let me reiterate, some Intel 13th and 14th gen CPUs are failing. I have yet to see one do so. I haven't seen it. I hear people talking about it, but I've built a number of 13th gen systems. I've only built a handful of 14th. Whatever this problem is, I haven't experienced it. Nobody I've sold one to has experienced it. But it does seem like the people who are very, very loud. So I would be curious what the percentage of failure is. Is it 1 in 5, 1 in 4, 1 in 500? I don't know. This is part of the technology developing, right? There's going to be a microcode update that will protect the CPU from failing if it hasn't already. If you have a 13th or 14th gen CPU that is it's causing games to crash, Intel's going to warranty it, no problem. You'll just be without a computer when you take your CPU out and mail it to Intel, and then you have to wait probably a week for that to arrive. Intel will process it, send you back another one. This is going over, the mail. That's another week. So you're out 2 weeks waiting for that warranted CPU to be replaced. They don't fix it, they replace it. If you don't have any problem, as most people don't have any problem with 13th and 14th gen CPUs, it wouldn't hurt you to do the microcode update when it's released. It's not, as far as I know, not yet released, but should be released soon. The new generation of Intel chips will be out, I think, September 3rd, if I'm not mistaken, about a month from today. And so what I think is going to happen is this issue is going to get buried under, here's a new one, here's a new one, here's a new one. We're going to move on to 15th gen. We've already seen Meteor Lake on these builds. And this technology moves so quickly, I don't think they're going to spend a lot of time. I could be wrong, but I don't think they're going to spend a lot of time on it. Here's the microcode update, and if you have a problem, we'll warranty it. And now we're moving on. They learn from it. And all CPUs, all 13th and 14th gen CPUs are not failing for the same reason. And they're not all failing at all. Some are failing for one reason, some are failing from another, depending on which batch when it was made, or which motherboard you plugged it into that might be overvolting it. There's a number of variables. People are talking about oxidation, but that wouldn't affect all of them. It would affect just that one batch. Because whatever caused it, once Intel was aware of it, they would have fixed it moving forward so that that wouldn't be affected on newer 14th gen and 13th gen chips being manufactured. So what I think about it, I mean, what can they do? In the meantime, you know, AMD also delayed their release. They had a planned release for the 9000 series, and then they said, oh, it's not meeting our quality standards. And this is what happens when we move so quickly. We start making mistakes. Haste makes waste. Always want to be first. Intel wants to be in the lead. AMD wants to be in the lead. Let's keep going back and forth, and it never ends. And we as consumers, you know, we can get caught up in, you know, team red, team blue, but you don't work for them and they don't know you and they didn't ask you to create a tribe. Maybe if you go work for them, it'd be different. I'd understand. But just to be on the sidelines as a consumer, rooting like it's some kind of a... The gamers turn everything into a game, I guess, right? So now it's Intel versus AMD, or it's... I don't know. I have all dated references for games. It's Master Chief versus the monsters. There are people that do that with cars. You know, it's got to be a Ford. It's got to be a Toyota, whatever. At the end of the day, not all Toyotas are good. Not all Fords are good, right? So whether you choose to pick a side, I prefer to be open-minded and go with who's best in the moment, because the moment keeps changing. And the future will ultimately decide who the survivor is through attrition, right? It's not really who has the best product. It's about attrition and who stays around the longest. It doesn't mean the better company, the better product wins. Companies can do business maneuvers that can greatly affect whether or not their competitor can stay in business. There's a dirty game that can be played through hostile takeovers of stock. Anyway, you know, if you read the history of the stockholders with Elon Musk, Tesla, or you read about how Jeff Bezos acquired the rights for the ebooks and screwed over every bookstore in doing so. He's very successful, but he's left damage. Was he right? What's the old Confucius saying? War is not about who's right or who's wrong. War is about who's left. So if this is a war between AMD and Intel, then it means only one. There can be only one. Another dated reference. We want to see two. We want that competition. We want AMD to sometimes be the better option. And then in a couple of weeks or months, then we want Intel to be the better option, or the faster, better chip, right? And then in a couple of months, then it's AMD. And it's like this horse race where you've got two horses that are just a nose ahead of each other, back and forth. It's really hard to say which one's better. They really feel like they're equal. So to point out Intel's errors seems like something AMD fans will do. And to point out AMD problems is something Intel fanboys will do. And they don't acknowledge their issues. Oh, those issues are not a big deal. But their issues, those are a big deal. And they both do this when neither one of them works for the company or has any investment in stock. So I just find that weird. I want to use the best product available at the time. I don't care who makes it. I am not loyal to Intel. I'm not loyal to AMD, and they are not loyal to me. So if AMD's making a crappy product, like in my opinion, the 8000 series sucks on the desktop, that's like a console chip. I don't want that in a business. It's hot. It's for gaming. If you're somebody who wants gaming, you probably love that chip in your PCI Gen 4 instead of Gen 5. So you can have a little better graphics in return. I'm not that guy. I want a strong processor that's not going to run hot constantly, that's affordable, and has a good reputation behind it. So sometimes that's AMD, and sometimes that's Intel. This streamer right here, this is an AMD. We built this on camera. And the streamer before it was an Intel 9900K. So you can see I'm agnostic when it comes to this stuff. Every company makes mistakes. Every company learns from them. And if your mistake is massive and has a very large negative impact on customers, you might go out of business. CrowdStrike. So these little errors are not a big deal. These are minor, as far as I'm concerned. AMD had issues too. It's funny how we forget about them, because that's no longer a problem. Nobody's buying those old CPUs anymore. We're focused on the problem today. And then 6 months from now, you're going to have something else you're going to, you know what I mean? And it just keeps us, I don't know, talking about something we have no control over. And it doesn't matter if you like it or you don't like it. You buy it or you don't buy it. If you feel like you were affected by this and you feel burned, don't buy their product ever again if that's what you want to do. Even if their product in the future is better than the competitors, you're going to spite them by refusing to buy their products because you had one bad experience. And I want to share a real quick story with you about that, and then we're going to wrap it up. I had a bad problem, that just one problem after another, with an appliance made by Whirlpool. Say it was Whirlpool. And this thing just kept breaking. No matter how many times I fix it, there's another weird problem. Not the same problem over and over, a different problem. I'm like, I will never, ever buy a Whirlpool appliance ever again. So we buy the new house. This is like 15, 16 years ago. And I'm putting new appliances in it. And you know I'm not buying Whirlpool. New refrigerator, new dishwasher, new stove. Not Whirlpool. I'm in Home Depot or Lowe's, one of the home goods DIY stores. And they have this all stainless steel inside and out dishwasher, which were very expensive in 2008. And this one was like $500 or less. And it was made by KitchenAid. It looked beautiful. It was a great price, and it was the floor model. So I said, I'll take the floor model, right? Knowing people have probably endlessly opened and closed the door. It looked fine. I tested the door closes good. You know. So they sold it to me. They delivered it. They installed it. And the control panel didn't work. It's like a touchpad control panel. Not like a screen, but like buttons underneath plastic. It didn't work. So I called up KitchenAid. They sent a repair person out. And he's like, yeah, it's this control board. I'll order one and I'll come back in a week. So of course, I couldn't use the dishwasher, but that was fine. We were still prepping the house. Came back a week later. He swapped that part out. All the control panel worked. It was probably a 15-minute job. And that dishwasher is one of the best dishwashers I've ever owned, and it's been solid ever since. And I understand that, you know, people are probably pushing the buttons on the display model and broke something. Not a big deal. And I decided KitchenAid is one of the best appliances I've ever owned. It looks beautiful. It's super reliable. It does a great job at washing the dishes. And somehow I ran into an article online that KitchenAid is made by Whirlpool. And this is what happens when you start becoming brand loyal, is you could be buying the brand you banned unknowingly because they make other brands. And ultimately, whether or not I bought a Whirlpool appliance makes no difference to Whirlpool. They don't care. If I was building an apartment complex and I needed to buy 175 dishwashers, then they'd care, right? Maybe. You know, how many Home Depots and handy store, DIY home stores have an inventory of those in the back room? How many do you think they order at a time for the corporate? You know, if you added up all of the home repair shops, how many thousands of the same model of dishwasher do you think they have in stock at stores around the United States? So whether or not I buy one, they don't care. So me saying I'm never going to buy Whirlpool again is really just punishing myself. That company made one of the worst products I've ever experienced with reliability and quality. And also the same company made one of the best products I've ever had. Now I just want KitchenAid. You know, it's been such a good dishwasher. So be aware of that. You may just be, as the expression goes, cutting off your nose to spite your face. So I try to be open-minded. If a company only produces crap, I promise they will go out of business. But if you got a bad one or they engineered a bad model, it's going to cost them a lot of money in that warranty. That guy that was sent out to the house to replace the touch panel, somebody paid him and it wasn't me. Someone paid for that part and it wasn't me. You understand what I'm saying? At some point, if that guy has to come out a few times and replace a few parts, they will exceed the cost of the dishwasher. And once they've exceeded it, as long as it's under warranty, they will continue going upside down. So for the company to survive, they can't manufacture crap and then turn around and spend more to keep it running under warranty than they've made. It's not sustainable. So anytime you have that frame of mind, I'm never going to buy that brand again, but that brand continues to sell, maybe your experience was just a point in time. If you go to a restaurant you've never been to, you could have a good experience or a bad experience depending on who's working that day. You understand? It's not generally the same one running in the kitchen, cooking in the kitchen, running the kitchen every single day that that restaurant is open from open to close. And the servers that serve you, some servers are better than others. Some are more attentive. Some care more than others. So you can go to the same restaurant, have one of the best meals and service of your life, go back and have one of the worst meals and service of your life, depending on who's working that day, maybe what mood they're in. Well, the same can be held true with these processors, whether we talk AMD or Intel. They're going to drop the ball from time to time. It's going to happen. But as long as they get up, dust themselves off, and keep going, okay, we got a bad batch, whatever. When I'm impacted by it, so all these people online making a big deal of this, and yet in real life, I've never met anybody. Has anybody in the chat room experienced having a bad 13th or 14th gen CPU? Just do that. Forget my experience. What about you? Have you experienced this? Waseng with 5 SGD contribution. Hi, Uncle Carey. Have a nice day ahead. SGD, that is a form of currency I've never heard of. Got to Google what I'm curious. SGD. This keyboard is so difficult to type on. It's, well, don't type on it enough to get used to it. Singapore dollar. Oh, very cool. If you were in Singapore, right on. I think Singapore is both a country and a city. Is that? Sorry, it's just a little nerd. Well, actually, let's see. Google, is Singapore a country? It's a country. Officially, the Republic of Singapore is a sovereign country as well as a city-state. It is both. I think it's the only one in the world, the only country in the world that's both a country and a city. Try to remember. I'm sure our viewer can tell us. I barely go outside, let alone go to Singapore, so I don't know. I was just curious. All right, let's get caught up and we'll wrap it up. We are running late today. Ron Varnish said the non-black Mugen 6 has only one fan. Yeah, I mentioned that in the video. In fact, that was one of the things I was trying to be very clear about regarding the price, that you were getting a silver heatsink with one fan. If you go back and rewatch the video, I specifically pointed attention to that. But I realize these videos go long and sometimes people drift off or they listen in the background and they're not fully listening. But yes. Anyway, so he got the silver Mugen. He says the non-black, the silver Mugen 6. He ordered a second fan and ran a test and it made no difference. Interesting. Okay. John Paul Bagan wants to know if anyone would consider getting an NVIDIA CPU after they are released. I got to see what it looks like first. It's like asking me, would you consider eating the food I cooked? What food? How are you cooking it? And, when? Without that information, I maybe. Best I can give you is a maybe. Let me see it first, and then I'll tell you. David Graham said he's very happy with his Ryzen 7 5800X. It's a great CPU. You should be happy with it. Just because something's faster doesn't mean that it's superior. If you're only driving 25 miles an hour around your neighborhood and you never go any faster than that, does it matter that the car can go 0 to 60 in 3 seconds? No, not to you it doesn't. So for you, that would be wasting your money, even though you know that other car's faster. So what? On the other hand, there are people that are like, I always want the fastest, and I don't want to pay too much for it. And that's where stuff like this comes in, for those people. David Graham says, I only upgrade when I need to. Yeah, and some people like to upgrade just for the fun of it. Richard Palmentier was going to change his CPU from a 12th gen to like a 13th or 14th. I'm like, why bother? Why bother? You're just wasting your time and your money. You're not going to see much difference. I said, wait for the next gen, wait for the 15th. Then you're going to need a new motherboard and then upgrade. There's nothing wrong with what he has. He just built it and he's already talking about upgrading it instead of just enjoying what he built. And as far as I can tell, it's not falling short on anything that he wants to do. It's just something to do. There's nothing wrong with it. It's more than meets his needs, but let's put some more money into it and make it even more powerful. The problem is the amount of money he'll have to pour into it just to get a little teeny tiny bit more power. To me, I would wait until the 15th gen and do the entire, motherboard, CPU, maybe even new SSD and RAM. If you really want to see a performance increase, just changing the processor isn't going to do much for most people. At least not within the first 2 or 3 years since you built the computer. Once your computer's 4 years old, maybe. But usually by then, they don't support the socket, certainly not Intel, but AMD still might. But if you're still running the same storage and the same amount of RAM on the same motherboard with the same chipset, just changing the CPU is not going to give you, even after 4 years, it's not going to give you a whole lot of difference. But that depends on how you use your computer. David Graham said Vatican is a city and a country. Oh, yes, you're right. So maybe it's Singapore and the Vatican. This is just like nerd trivia. I love it. Patrick Manny says, aren't we at the point of Are we at or near the point of diminishing returns? We're always at that point at a certain level, right? You've got the low end, you've got the middle, and you've got the high end. When you compare the middle to the low end, it can be a very big difference in performance, reliability, and the length of time that machine is useful to you. right? If it's struggling now, imagine when 24H2 for Windows 11 comes out, might bog that machine down to drive you crazy. It's so slow on the low end budget. And then you've got the middle, which can make a significant difference for the dollar, where you don't struggle through as quickly, that the lifespan, the usefulness of the PC is extended. But from the top of the middle to the bottom of the high end, that's when you start experiencing diminishing returns. The high end has a higher profit margin and it sells for more money, but it gives you very little in return. So a 10850K sold for $100 less than a 10900K. They were the same chip, but the 10850K was 100 megahertz slower. So if the 10900K ran at 5.4 gigahertz, then the 10850K ran at 5.3. Just as an example, I don't actually know what it ran. So 100 megahertz difference, $100 savings. Would you pay $100 for every megahertz, for every 100 megahertz? Think about how fast your turbo is on your CPU. 5,000 megahertz at $100, so basically $1,000 per gig. That's how it's priced. You see how that giant $100 price for that little tiny 100 megahertz, which in the scope of say 5,400. So you got $5,400 in your pocket. Now you got $5,300 in your pocket. Is that a huge difference to you? So you're going to give up $100 so your computer has the maximum potential. It's not going to run all the time at that speed. But as you add to the top of the speed, that's you're adding to your temporary turbo, not your full-time, full-on regular. You know, you get your regular temp and frequency, and then you've got your using all my resources and the turbo jumps up. So if you're at the regular most of the time, and you peak every once in a while to 5.4 gigahertz, and you save $100 and get the 10850K, now it's going to still run the same idles and everything's the same. But when you do that little peak, now it'll do it 100 megahertz, 1/10 faster for $100. When you add RAM, right? When you get up to about 32 gigs of RAM, most people aren't going to use 32 gigs of RAM. We've already done this sample. You can go in your task manager and you can see how much RAM you're using. Most people are not using anywhere near 32 gigs of RAM. So if you have 32 gigs of RAM, upgrading it is only going to slow you down. You want to talk about diminishing returns, you're going to have to replace the RAM you have now. Like in a case like this, we would take out perfectly good working RAM, take it out, and then we bump it to, let's say, 96 gigs. We put two 48 gig modules in, and we spend that money. We take our time. We're careful not to damage this the way it has to be open. And now when we turn it on, for that Minisforum logo to pop up, it's like taking forever. Why? Because it's got to check the RAM before it starts booting Windows. If you've got 128 gigs of RAM or 256 gigs of RAM, you're just going to sit there every time you reboot your computer and wait for it to test all of that RAM before Windows will start to load. Why would you do that? Now, when Windows loads, it's still only going to use the amount of RAM you're using. We're back to the car analogy. Sure, the car can do 130 miles an hour, but do you drive 130 miles an hour? Most people don't. Some people like the idea knowing they can. Good luck with that. So once you've exceeded the amount of RAM you're actually using, that RAM is just sitting there doing nothing. So if you're using 22 gigs of RAM, that's what your actual usage is, and you put in 96 gigs of RAM, you're not going to notice anything, except when you restart the computer, it's going to take a long time. You're going to sit there thinking something's broken, and you're going to wait and wait and wait, and then all of a sudden, then the Minisforum logo or whatever your logo is that pops up will appear. So you have slowed your computer down, and you paid money to do that. And even if your system booted as quickly before as it does after, you're still not using the RAM. So yes, that is a point of diminishing returns because you paid all this money to get all this RAM, but nothing's any faster because you're not using it. What else can we buy that we don't use? Can you think of other examples? Something you would buy and then not use it. Isn't not using it the same as not having it? I mean, until you need it. Will that day ever come? That's the question. There are people out there that will need 96 gigs of RAM, but there's most people who want it thinking it's better, and they'll spend their money for something that they're not using. It's a complete waste and a complete point of diminishing returns. So it's pretty much all on the high end, the enthusiasts that are experiencing that phenomena, not the general consumers. Andy Kane says hello. Hey, Andy, welcome in. All right, I think I got everybody here. A shout out one more time to all of our generous contributors today. Thank you to Wasang and David Graham, Richard Palmentier, and Paul Connolly for your contributions. Thank you to all of my members for joining us in the chat. If you'd like to join us in the chat, if you're watching the video and you want to join in on the conversation and interact with me, consider becoming a member and supporting the channel so that we don't have to go to some big corporation and be their puppet and do what they tell us to do. We're like, think of NPR, think of a publicly supported review channel, how-to channel. And the more videos and the more content we can create, well, the more it costs. So we have a budget based on how many members we have. If we get more members, we can do bigger things and we can do more things more often. So keep that in mind if you enjoy this content. Your support would mean a lot to us because we don't basically have much in the way of YouTube revenues, not anymore. And otherwise, I mean, I can change the format of the channel where I'm not having to buy stuff, and that'll massively decrease my costs. In the meantime, for all of you who support the channel, thank you so much. And a super shout out to our friends at, of course, Acronis, RoboForm, VIP CDK deals, and our friend Buster, Oystein, and Frankie B, who have been very generous supporters during this time where we're moving to another studio. And it's a little mad right now, a little crazy. But their support means we can get things done much, much faster or sooner than we were expected. So thank you so much, all of you, for being members and supporting us here so we can continue to do this kind of stuff. And thanks to Minisforum, right, for offering this to us in exchange for an honest review. And I really like the quality of Minisforum's products. I have no issue recommending any of them. I just really want to introduce you to them, show you how to get into them, understand what it is you're going to buy with regards to power, performance, upgradability, noise, size, heat, all of that. Whether or not that's ideal for you, I can't say. But at least if you want to buy one of these, you know exactly what to expect. There should be no buyer's remorse. And Minisforum has good warranty and very good support, and their build quality is excellent. Prove me wrong. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks, of course, to Mara for monitoring our chat room today and the thumbnails and video notes that she always does, as well as all of the administration of the channel that goes on behind the scenes, reaching out to companies, answering viewer emails, et cetera, et cetera. So I keep her pretty busy. If you want to keep her busy too, you can reach out via email, and you can hit the About section of this YouTube channel to find the contact address there. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you all very, very soon. Remember, tomorrow, that is soon, part 2 of the Johnsbow build. We'll put a link to part 1 in the video notes today if you want to go back and watch it, because it was a little while ago, to remind you where we left off. I didn't intend to procrastinate this long, but here we are. We're going to be changing the motherboard out of it, going with a back-connected motherboard instead. So I'm looking forward to that. It sounds like fun for me to do, and I think it'll be a great learning experience for you guys. And the end should be, the end product we're done with Should be a very, very clean looking build, just like Project Zero, only in that really unique Johnsbow case. I hope you'll join me then tomorrow at 1 o'clock p.m. Pacific time. That's 4 p.m. Eastern. And we do that show every single Friday. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you all very, very soon. Bye for now.